Karen,
Yes.
you might need to do this interview by yourself today.
Oh?
Yeah.
Why?
I think one of two things is going to happen.
Okay.
Either I'm going to faint from the anticipation of the person we're going to talk to.
You're freaking me out a little bit.
or I'm just going to sit back, starstruck, and listen to you have a conversation. Because anyone who has listened to the show for any amount of time knows what Robert Monroe and his studies of out-of-body experiences have meant to me.
Yeah.
And everyone knows how astral travel and the pursuit of expanded consciousness has been and continues to be one of the primary motivations behind the show.
Mm-hmm.
Well, today, we're bringing the source of all things Bob Monroe to the show.
Ooh.
That's right. After almost 4 years of trying to find answers, we are finally bringing the experts to the show. And by the experts, of course, I'm referring to none other than Allyn Evans, the CEO of the Monroe Institute, on the show today. I can't stand it. Hear the show open.
My name is Will.
And I'm Karen.
And unlike Mulder and Scully,
we both want to believe.
so we've embarked on a journey of discovery.
We've talked to people deeply entrenched in the spiritual and metaphysical world.
We've thrown ourselves into weird and wonderful experiences. I even joined a coven of witches.
And wait, you joined a coven?
Yep, all in the interest of finding something
Anything.
that will prove that there's something beyond this physical,
three-dimensional world we all live in.
This is the Skeptic Metaphysicians.
Welcome to another episode of the Skeptic Metaphysicians. I'm Will.
And I'm Karen.
And I realize now I've misspoken fairly severely. This is not merely another episode of our show. This is the episode of the show that everyone has been waiting for. If somehow you've not gotten the memo about this incredible organization, the Monroe Institute is the world's premier organization for the study of human consciousness. Now, not only do they offer residential meditation retreats, online courses, and research programs for the study of expanded states of consciousness, but they were founded by none other than the illustrious Robert Monroe. Yes, that Bob Monroe, who pioneered studies into out-of-body experiences, among lots of other things. Allyn Evans is the Chief Executive Officer of the Monroe Institute, and she is here today to once and for all clear up all the mysteries of consciousness and astral projection. Welcome to the show, Allyn Evans. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
Well, we are so thrilled that you're here. So thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to come and talk with us.
Yes. And I know for a fact I did not oversell. So I did a lot, no pressure, but wow, do we have a lot of expectations? So,
Oh dear.
okay. Gosh, I don't even know where to begin. There's so much to talk about. Everyone, like I mentioned in the opening of the show, everyone who listens to the show knows how much I have astral projection, and specifically Bob Monroe's book, Journeys Out of the Body, was so instrumental into me starting my exploration into this kind of things. However, maybe because of Bob Monroe's book, I have not been able ever to journey out of my body. And I think that might be because in the later chapters, he starts talking about the entities and things like that you could potentially experience. And that has freaked the living crap out of me. So I don't even know where to begin, except for the fact that now that you're here, I'm confident that by the end of the show, I'll be able to fly out of my body. Is that right?
Well, maybe by tomorrow.
But tomorrow, I'll
That's
take
still
it.
pretty good.
I will take it. As I mentioned, I've been doing this for a lot of years.
Yep.
Right.
So did you read the last book? Ultimate Journeys.
Not yet. I have it in my closet right now,
Okay.
getting ready
So
but,
that book will help you get over your fears.
oh, good.
Because what he realized, or as he matured and had more experiences, he realized that was typically negative aspects of himself, shadow sides, lessons to learn. So read that book.
Cool.
Well, you might be more afraid
That'll
then.
help with the fear.
I was just going to say
You might
that.
be more afraid.
It might be a double-edged sword, actually,
Oh,
because there might be some shadows inside me. I don't know. However,
it's a healing process. So.
Yeah.
But I will say this, I didn't start with outer bodies myself. I started it in a different way. Bob's way, we believe, now, we don't know for a fact because we didn't have a way to measure it or figure it out. But the hypothesis is that it was because of all the work he was doing with the sound technology to induce sleep when he was trying to study people who were, do you learn while you sleep? That was, he got really into that in about the time TV came on the scene. So they were experimenting with all these sounds that were going, in either ear. And that's what they think could have possibly have initiated those spontaneous out of bodies. So for others like me and other people, a lot of us don't have that spontaneous out of body experience. Instead, we have started a practice. So mine was dream analysis, and it was meditation. And then it leads you, it's the foundational work that leads you there.
Right.
So
basically what you're saying is you got to crawl before you can run with it, right? Basically just
yes.
slow your roll and start small.
Now, some people don't, like if there's severe trauma and things like that, some people can have out of body NDEs, near-death experiences. And others will just have it because for whatever reason they're ready. I've heard a lot of people say they had a spontaneous out of body when they were exhausted, just physically exhausted. But for many of us, it's a practice. It's it's something that you are opening up these abilities without even maybe realizing. I wasn't after the OBE when I was doing it. I wanted to be more psychic. That's what I wanted. But then that was a side benefit.
Right.
So Will said something about crawling before you run or walk. So let's do that here. We know most of the people in this space are very familiar with Monroe Institute and excited, but we do have some people that are new and they are not going to know about Monroe Institute. So can you just give us a little bit of a background on that, please?
Right. So Bob Monroe was a radio guy. He made his money there. And then when that switch to television started, he was like, do I want to keep doing this kind of thing? Because now it's radio with a video. It wasn't inspiring him. So he heard about this thing about us learning while you sleep. And he already had a team of people. So they set up a research area. And what surprised them is they had trouble getting people to go to sleep. So that's when they started working with the sounds that they had, maneuvered and manipulated in the radio business. And again, the theory is that might have been what led to his spontaneous out of bodies. But in 1958, he finds himself with his back up to the ceiling right by a chandelier. And he looks down and he sees his wife. Then he sees another man in bed with his wife, but it was him. So then he freaks out, as most of us would do, for the first time, especially in 1958, right?
Especially then, yes.
And he goes, so that interrupts that out-of-body experience, and he thinks he's lost his mind. So he goes on this pursuit. He talks to doctors. He had friends that were doctors and psychologists and psychiatrists. Am I crazy? Clear me, help me know I'm not losing my mind. And eventually he was like, okay, I must not be losing my mind. And then he just started to go with it, because it was happening. He journaled it. That's where those books came from, those episodes that he journaled.
Right.
So he, with his curiosity and his wanting to help others have a similar type of experience, that's what led him to create the Monroe Institute.
Gotcha. And now to piggyback off of that, the Monroe Institute might have started with that. And everyone now knows by binaural beats. And in fact, I was doing a deep dive into your website and I found a free downloadable sample and I actually tried it right before we started here. And I got to tell you, I went, boom. And I've not been meditating I've been in and off. I was doing it every day for a long time and I fell out of it for a while. We went to Europe. We came back. I've been trying to get back into it, but I've only done it here or there. I did this time right before we started this interview and I went, whoom, I fell so far deeply, so quickly. And then he brought in the waves, right? And then I remember the sound he heard right before he started, right? So that was like, aha, I know this sound. And I immediately freaked out and opened my eyes again because, oh my God, I'm all, so anyway, but that's the same binaural beats. You do a lot with sound entrainment and things like that at the Institute. But there's a lot besides out of body travel. The Monroe Institute does a lot with expanded consciousness. I mean, you guys do a lot about a lot of things. Can you give us some examples of some of the studies that you've pioneered and the things that you found?
I want to go back to the technology first.
Okay.
And when Bob started this, he hired two scientists. He wanted it to, he was really, it was important to him that it was not like a woo-woo, new age type thing going on. So he was looking for verification. And so as he's having these experiences, he had what he called the explorers, which are volunteers. They're having these experiences. They're documenting it all. But he thought, I need to have some researchers on board to help me make this more scientific or the review of it. And so he hired Tom Campbell, and Tom Campbell wrote My Big Toe, The Theory of Everything. And he worked for NASA at some point before then. And then he hired another gentleman that's not as well known, Dennis Menerick. Dennis Menerick is who read an article about binaural beats that were discovered in the 1800s by a German scientist. They then, when they read that article, they were like, wait a minute, we can do this too. And that's what led to this binaural beat technology.
Got it.
And then when they started using it, this Bob Monroe is known to have said, I have a tiger by the tail and I don't know what to do with it, because just changed everything.
Right.
And they were starting to be able to journey together. And they would have Tom and Dennis in different, what we call, they're like Faraday cages, but they're not, I'd say they're partial Faraday cages. So they're not completely sealed. But you're very isolated and separated. And then they would be shared journeys that they would have, that they would record and document. And that's when they were like, okay, we have something important here.
And so they had journeys that they compared notes and they found similarities in them.
Yeah, they did. So they would, first of all, they would have to write it down after each session, what happened. Then they each had an interview with Bob separately. Then they would come together and they would be like meeting in a cave, or, they would have shared hikes in the forest. It was shared activity. Yeah.
That is cool.
So I was thinking they each had the same experience, but they were together.
Right. They would see
Wow.
each other. And that happens all the time here. We just finished a Gateway, which is our flagship program, this week. And I go eat lunch with participants at least once a week, and I hear all these stories, and they're like, we have a big crystal, one of our things that people seem to know about, the big crystal out the back, and they'll meet at the crystal and they'll see each other and report seeing each other. And they have written it down in their journals before they come to discuss it. So they would have both written down, that they had seen each other, interacted with each other. You just gave me a message. Sometimes now they'll tell me I'm giving them messages or talking to them, and I'm not consciously aware of it. But apparently there's some energetic, exchange that can go on whether we're conscious of it or not.
You just gave me head to toe chills. That is incredible. I did read of your Gateway experiences, and I'm fascinated by it. And so I already told Karen, every penny that we get, every spare change, I'm putting it into a jar because I've got to experience it. And if you're listening to this and you're at all interested in this stuff, go to their website and we'll add a link in our show notes to it so you could see what this entails. You have a YouTube channel where people actually talk about their experiences there, and it actually shows the check units or something like that. That was actually where you sleep.
Right. Well, you sleep there and you meditate there, and it stands for Controlled Environmental Holistic Chamber. And that Bob loved acronyms. In the back of the books, right? In the back of the books, they're defined because there's so many of them that you have to keep up with. But it's a contained space that has a black dark out curtain, and it's basically a bed that's kind of in a wall, but you've got a pretty big opening, like a window, and then the black curtains there, and then we have the technology being piped in from what we call the control room to each check unit. So it's a shared experience.
Right.
And so the people that are participating in these, do they have to have a certain level of experience, or can just like anybody go in and bam, it works?
Anybody. Okay, so there are different experiences based on what you've been doing yourself. So some people have a heightened experience. Like when I was in Gateway, which was 2009, I didn't have some of the spectacular experiences that some of my fellow participants were having, but I also was having experiences. So it was okay. I just wasn't seeing the big movie in front of my eyes, that people would report different things like that. And actually part of that I now know is based on how my best way to perceive is in that space. And I'm more auditory, kinesthetic, just a knowing, cognizant. And so that's a different experience than someone who's very visual when they're in those states.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Is there any way, if you're cognitive, to become visual? Because I want to see it, but
Yes,
I'm cognizant.
You can. And I still, though, my dominant is auditory.
Gotcha.
So just, for example, my own experience, a lot of my meditations, I'm in the dark. And I just go, okay, you're going to have to tell me what's going on here because I can't see anything. But then I will have other experiences, like your out of body would be, you would be seeing lucid dreams. And even in some meditations, for me, it appeared more like a vignette of a dream, but I know it's not a dream.
Mm-hmm.
So there is some seeing involved, but I'll tell you this, I've figured out over the years that I prefer the auditory experience. And the reason I do is because I don't have to interpret. If it's just a visual experience, you have to interpret. Now, there are people who are visual would, say, oh, I don't know about that. I prefer my way.
Right.
But yeah, I've learned that over the years.
So what is your experience like? Do you hear like words? Like what? Can you give us an example?
So when it first started, it was when I was in the early days of meditating. It would be, I started with symbols actually. So I was seeing like a flash of a symbol. So maybe a rose or maybe a wagon, just something. And that's how I started this idea of, okay, I got to interpret what this means for me. Then it went to seeing a word. So just seeing a word pop up. And then it went to, I would hear the word. Then I would hear a sentence. And this is a progression. And then later I could hear long, more than one sentence, maybe a paragraph or just a message that would make sense. And sometimes it sounds like my voice and sometimes it doesn't. And then it's like, I love it when I get words I would never say and I have to look them up.
Right.
Yeah, like where did that come from? So that's validation, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
And one time I saw Latin and I don't understand Latin. And I didn't have the opportunity, unfortunately, to write the whole thing down. So I don't know what the message was, but I got a couple of the words that let me know it was Latin. But I had that knowing this is Latin. And then I'll tell you a gateway. No, it was one of the graduate programs that I attended as a participant. After we had a meditation, we always come back to discuss what happened. And one of the participants said they had and there was a male, and they had this woman just in front of them. They could see that was just crying and just so distraught and speaking Spanish. They didn't speak Spanish. So they sounded it out. Like they were saying, this is what she was saying. And we happened to have somebody who spoke Spanish in our group. And it was something about that she would always love him. Her heart had been broken. It was this beautiful love letter we didn't know who it was intended for. But those kind of things make you go, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's not something you make up.
How did we plan this? Yeah. And so you get these kind of validations all the time.
Wow.
Oh, God. That's it. I got to go.
You gotta go.
I got to go. So, okay. What time should I get there? And
You can start on a Saturday.
But so the cool thing is that you do offer a week-long experience. You also have weekend ones. You have virtual things that people can do. You have, there's all kinds of different offerings, but we're going to talk about that all in a second.
Okay.
When we're talking about expanded consciousness, we're talking about Monroe Institute. Are you still undergoing research in the Institute now?
We are. We have, and we're a small team. We have, I would say, 1.5 researchers. And for years, we only had someone here for 1 day a week. And now we've expanded it. But we also can collaborate with other organizations, to help us with that. But we are looking at the efficacy of the sound technology. The interesting thing about what we do, it's not just the sound technology. There are things that we do that support the sound technology. And we also train you in a way that if you want to, you can completely step away from the sound technology. So it's not about just this technology. That's not what we're all about. It's the whole system and the whole experience. And that's, I can't remember what else you asked me.
Well, I was going to ask, do you want the other half of the researcher? Because I can certainly step right in there.
We can look stuff up.
They're really smart. So they actually work at the University of Virginia.
Okay.
For the other 2 days.
Yeah. I'm happy to. No, I don't qualify.
So one of the things I teach energy medicine. So we're working with energy healing.
Okay.
And one of the things we're doing with that is we're doing a study where we are putting EEG, mind mirror EEGs on participants to see the healer versus the healee, that if their brain patterns are starting to come together during the healing session. And so that's one that's being worked on in collaboration with energy medicine. We just finished a human potential. We're not finished. We finished with the gathering of the data of a human potential human performance study. So we always have something going on that we're trying to improve or demonstrate efficacy.
Very cool. Okay, so two things. One, human. If you want to test the bad side of the human potential, that would be me. I'm happy to volunteer. But secondly, now the one that I might actually be able to help with is energy heal. I am a Reiki practitioner, have been for years and years and years and years. So any way that I can get myself to the Monroe Institute, I am all about it. So
wow. That is unabashed.
I mean,
Just out there.
Do you know me at all?
So I have a question, kind of getting back to the gateway or in the curtain and the sounds. Have you had people who more than one different psychic abilities open up because of that?
Yes. And so for me personally, then you're next.
Yeah, we're going. We're both going. That's it. We're bringing the whole family.
That was my entire drive. Like that was what I was doing. I was trying to learn how to be more psychic, cut out the middleman, I would say, and be able to be more in communication with that higher self. Bob called it the total self aspect of you. But it definitely, not only with me, but I've seen it with other people, how it does definitely help wake you up, or bring you more to those gifts.
Yeah. As if we needed any more reason to hold together.
Reiki is a good one too, to help you intensify whatever you're doing. Like whatever I did here, then I added Reiki to it, and it was like a booster to move me.
All of the studies at Monroe Institute, every once in a while you get information about what's coming out, and obviously all the work that you guys are doing is absolutely fascinating and instrumental to helping. And I love your motto. I think it's just something as simple as your mission. It's just like wanting to raise the consciousness of the planet.
Oh, right.
I mean, that is right up our alley. So
yes.
that's fantastic. And it's very important. And unfortunately, these days, sometimes a little bit challenging to do.
Right.
We're kind of stuck in a little bit of a weird position.
Right.
When we're talking about expanded consciousness, we've talked to people who have talked to us about the 9 levels or 9 dimensions of consciousness. We've talked about the Hawking's map of consciousness.
Oh, yeah. I'm a big fan.
Right. So we've talked about all those kinds of things. But from the Monroe Institute itself, can you help us define consciousness?
Oh, that's a tough one.
That's why I'm here.
I know, but here's the thing, and if Bob Monroe were here, I believe this is what he'd say. That's why we create these situations for you to experience it yourself, for you then to figure this out yourself without me giving you a definition, a direction to go. Our only dogma is you're more than your physical body.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's it. So it's for you to decide. It's for you to figure out. And I can tell you stories. One of the stories I was thinking about when you were asking about enhancing your psychic abilities, I have a friend, Candy Sanderson, who wrote a book called The Reluctant Messenger. And she came here for years. And then at one point, a graduate program she was taking, it opened up her channeling abilities. And she has, that's been like, I'd say 8 years ago, 7 years ago. And it shifted her. And she was not doing that before. And just like with me, I would read books in my late 20s, early 30s about all these people that were psychic and were trying to teach me how to be psychic. And it dawned on me, like 4 books in, wait a minute, how can they teach me? They said that they had this gift from the moment they could remember. So how can they teach me? I'm 30 years old. I don't have, I'm not perceiving any of that beyond my fifth sense, senses.
Right.
So the Monroe Institute certainly is a place to do that, whether it's remote viewing, whether it's just, going through the programs that's just opening you up in general. It's certainly a playground for that and a place to learn.
Yeah. So I love that, because basically what you're saying is, I can't tell you, but let me show you. Right.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
cool. Right. That's that's like every hero in the story. I can't tell you, but I can show you.
Right.
Well, and I think that's so important because everyone's experiences, I'm sure, are similar but vastly different.
Right.
And so if you're having an experience that's not just like this one, you might think you're doing it wrong and get,
Right.
like disillusioned or whatever and quit. So,
Right.
Which is why this space is so difficult for people like me. Right. I
Right.
need the pill. I need the lever. I need the button to push. I need it to be
instant gratification.
not only, yes, but not only that, I need it to be predictable. I need it to be measurable. I need it to be,
Okay. So you are really in your way here.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
And the thing is that he has these experiences, and he talks about, he has this thing about how the universe starts out with a whisper, and if you don't hear it, then it gets a little louder, and then it hits you in the head. He has had that heck beat out of him, and he still doesn't pay attention.
So why do you think that is? Why do people like me, just even though we're faced with the realization, the knowing, we
Yeah.
still have to have that little bit more proof?
Or you're probably, and this is very simplistic, but you're probably more left brain than right brain. You know how the more analytical, the more the thinker versus the creative. But we all have both. But sometimes when we get into that, the analyzer, the critic, the reviewer, that's pulling us away a lot of times from the experience. And so when you're having these experiences, try to talk to that side of yourself and go, just watch, just hang out, because I need you to observe, but I need you to be quiet. And then you can bring in more of that evaluation later.
Right.
That could help you then make a next step. But and I think it's fear too, this, whenever I started at some point when I was getting what I perceived as guidance, I'd go, okay, if I get it, I'm going to take it. And there were times I would be going
Right.
I ain't doing that,
Yeah.
And then I would just go, but I made a commitment. And so I am going to do it. So it might scare me to do the next thing that I know I need to be doing,
Right.
or either my self-evolution or my career, or just to be kind to someone.
Right. And it's funny because my personal motto is growth begins at the edge of your comfort zone. But I think it's more like my trying to convince myself to get out of my comfort zone, because no matter what I do, I'm still, yep. And I will get there, but not right now. Right.
Yeah.
So you are 100% right. I think fear does play a lot to do with this kind of thing. And I don't know how to get around it. So I'm hoping that some of these Monroe Institute programs might actually help someone overcome that fear. Yeah.
It really does. I think a side benefit is because you're doing all this, and so basically it's the benefits of meditation. So it's also the benefit of self-evolution. So that's a soul journey and a healing for itself. But then if you just take that out and you're just meditating, you're doing these things that change the physical nature of the brain, improve memory, just very positive changes. So I lost my train of thought.
Believe me, it happens to me all the time. I have that effect on people because I exude that kind of train wreck energy everywhere I go. So, but basically, we talk about the Monroe Institute programs helping you to overcome that fear.
Oh, that's okay. So as you do more of this, the brain, will adjust and change. And so it also helps with anxiety, with fear. It also helps with, you naturally have this side benefit of accepting, of trust. Everything's okay. I know it looks like this is a really bad situation and I don't want to be here, but I trust. You just believe there's more at play here, and you step into it so much. I step into it so much now that my body doesn't show stress when I'm in really stressful situations.
Wow.
Did I mention I need to go to the Monroe Institute?
Maybe once
And
or
people
twice.
have reported like taking, and we advise not to do this unless under doctor's care, but people have reported anecdotally that they are able to stop their anxiety meds and, other type of medications.
Wow. That's fantastic.
That is worth.
Again, that's doctor's care.
Absolutely.
Yes, of course.
Yes. Disclaimer.
Right.
Totally understand. Yep.
So I had something that I don't know why just popped into my head, and it's kind of a different topic,
Okay.
but I'm just going to ask anyways. So I never thought of Virginia being like this mecca for metaphysics and enlightenment. From Florida, not that that's a mecca either, but but here, we have the Monroe Institute, and over near us, we have the Edgar Casey ARE. And I'm wondering, did Edgar and Bob, did they know each other? Because they were kind of the same.
Not just that, but University
frame.
of Virginia is actually doing studies of near-death studies with children as well. So there's a lot of stuff going on in Virginia.
Right. I don't know the history with Bob and Edgar Casey. I know our organizations have worked together in the past. And I think Edgar Casey was older than Bob, but again, I'm not familiar with that. But I will say Bob's journey here was not based on anything metaphysical. It was more about where he wanted to live and where he thought the TV business would be good. And he started in Richmond and then that didn't jive with him. And so he ended up moving to the Charlottesville area and then found this beautiful land and house in Afton, Virginia. Stayed there for a while. It was called Whistlefield. And then started looking for more land around this area to put this place. And so that's the Monroe Institute.
So maybe he didn't think it was metaphysical.
Right.
We are
on a big bed of quartz. Quartz are everywhere. So there is, I would agree, there's something that's probably related to that's drawing people here.
Yeah.
Yeah. No doubt about it. There's just too much going on in Virginia. And,
there is.
And who knew? Because before we lived here, we didn't know.
Yeah.
And now we know.
Now we know.
and
then we started doing this stuff after moving here. Because we were broadcast, like it's just, there's something in the water.
There's stuff.
Maybe you're on a bed of crystals.
Has the mission of the Monroe Institute stayed the same throughout the years? Has it changed? Is it heading in a different direction, or are you still kind of moving in the same expanded consciousness exploration?
I would say it's very similar to what Bob Monroe, how he started it and positioned it. But one of the main differences is he felt like initially that if people needed it or could benefit from it, they would find Monroe. They would find him. And as the story goes, as he got closer to dying, he realized it was such a valuable tool that he wanted to get it out there more. And so that's what was one of his messages: get it out there. So we, along the journey from when that happened, which would have been 95, is when he died, 1995. We still, as an organization, kind of tucked it away and kept it hidden. And part of that was, how you look at what's marketing, we're a nonprofit. And so I think there was some, just as the different people leading the organization were leading it, just not really sure how to make that work with this type of work. Since I've started as the CEO, we're taking on a high growth strategy because we really want to get it out there. We want as many people to find us, to know we're here, whether they just, use our Expand app, which even has a free, subscription, because we think any type of direct experience is healing for an individual. And the more people that can have this, the better.
Right. First of all, thank you for bringing up the Expand app. We're going to talk about that in a second. But second of all, thank you for wanting to grow this, because when we had lived in Virginia for a while, I knew Bob Monroe. I read his book, Journeys Out of the Body, when I was in my 20s. I'm a little bit older than that. Not much, but a little bit older than that now. But I didn't know that there was a Monroe Institute for many, many, many years. It wasn't in one of these interviews that we actually talked to someone. So, have you talked to someone from the Monroe Institute? I was like, who's a what? Is it having to do with Bob Monroe? And sure enough, and then from that point forward, I never looked back.
Yeah.
But you're right. This is, especially now, it's so timely, the importance of getting this out to as many people as possible. We are on the cusp of a human awakening like none other, right? At least this is what we've been told many, many times, many, many interviews.
Right.
I think that an organization like you that has spent so many years entrenched in the exploration of expanded consciousness for the good of the human population has to be at the forefront of all this. So anything we can do to help spread the message, I hope you won't hesitate, because we are on board. We are Team Monroe.
Well, thank you. And we've got a lofty goal. When I took over, they already had this goal, but they weren't measuring it. They weren't tracking it. It was just something we would say, and that is we want to reach 1% of the world's population. And so then when the board and I first met together after I was hired, we said, wait a minute, what do we want? What are we going to do with 1% of the population? Like, what are we trying to do with them? And that's when we said, okay, a direct experience. So that's a meditation or a program, something that could lead to transformation. And then we decided, well, we should put a time frame to it. So then we added 2032. And now we are tracking it. Now we're behind a little bit, but I'm expecting that we're going to catch up because we keep collaborating with people. We keep doing these interviews. We're on a mission.
Well, now that you've been on the Skeptic Metaphysicians, you are golden. You're going to hit that next year.
Well, and then I also think the other thing I think is we're 1%. We're one organization going after 1%. And we have, like you mentioned, other organizations and other individuals who are saying the same thing. So if we miss our mark, we don't hit it, then we're at least contributing to that push, to that expansion, to that change.
No question. Yeah.
And why do you think, or that's not the right way, how do you think the work that you are doing can help our current culture with all of the stuff that's going on?
Oof.
That's a tough question too. I think you should go experience it. I'm joking.
I love her. You and I, we get along just great.
I think it goes back to if we're working on ourselves. And this is a David Hawkins idea too. And you said you've interviewed someone that gave a lot of information about that. If we work on ourselves and we work on how we're changing our perspective, and we also experience life differently through that different lens, because we have worked on ourselves and gotten to that place of acceptance. Maybe we're close, or we're even living in unconditional love. That's a tough one to do, but maybe that's where we are. So the more of us that are doing that, and this work helps people get there, that's what is the changer. Yeah. That's, in my opinion, this is my opinion, it's the change agent.
I'm a change agent as well. And I echo your sentiment. And Karen, you're in good company. So for sure. Okay. Well, let's go back to your Expand app, because I just found out about it. I haven't downloaded it yet, but I plan to. Okay. What is that exactly? Is it just binaural beats? Is it meditation? What exactly is it?
No. So we have what we call now Monroe Sound Science as well. So we continue to use the HemiSync technology, and that's in several of our programs like Gateway. But of course, with technology shifting, we know more about how the brain works. We have better ways of looking at what's going on in the brain when we are listening and experiencing these things. We've added a little bit. So binaural beats is one module or one modulation. So we've added up to four modulations in some of the work we're doing. We're looking into 3D as well, and we've already started using that actually when we in some of the presentations I've given. So anyway, all of that, which would be binaural beats and Monroe Sound Science, or these other modulations, combined, not combined, are on the app.
So I know when I'm meditating, I'll put the music on, and you'll get the binaural beats or the different music or whatever. It's very intense. Why is sound such a mechanism to help get us into that zone? Like, what does it do with our brains?
Right. So that we would have to go back to what we know about the binaural beat effect, and then also once we get into Monroe Sound Science, but it's an entrainment that can happen with the binaural beats. And so you've got one frequency going in one ear that's inaudible if it's played by itself, another frequency going in the other ear. And then for simplistic purposes, let's say you've got a third ear in the brain. The third ear is trying to unscramble what's going on. And that's when it will go to a different hertz or cycles per second. So the brain is led to a different cycle per second, like a theta state, an alpha state, a beta state. Of course, we have a very complex formula. So our meditations aren't just theta. They aren't just alpha. They're very complex. But so that is what's helping you go to these deeper states of awareness, experiencing them, that takes meditators years of sitting to be able to hold and reach those states. Yeah, that's the
exciting part, right? Right there. You meditate for years and years and years in a dark cave by yourself without any food and water.
Yeah, and that's just it. And I know if I say this out loud, I'll probably get some feedback that's negative feedback. But if you're coming here or you're experiencing our meditations, it's not about mindfulness meditation. It's not about TM. It's about the experience, going along with the experience. So for me, meditation is joyful. Sometimes it's entertaining. Sometimes there's healing. Sometimes it's very quiet, but it's not a discipline. Like you never feel like, except for, getting relaxed and hit and play. It's not a big discipline. You're not having to, like you said, sit in a cave and not drink water for 5 hours and, sit or stand or have your hands over your head or
right.
It's relaxing and it's enjoyable.
Oh.
And you're changing your brain and you're going through self-evolution.
So it's an active thing. It's not a passive.
Imagination, right? Imagination is the key thing. And a lot of people that have been long time meditators who quiet the mind completely, who send away any thoughts, they have trouble with the imagination aspect of it. And imagination is key. Mm-hmm. That's what can start initiating and triggering those other experiences to unfold.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're saying is it's not about clearing the mind, but rather activating the mind. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, think about this. If you're clearing the mind, you see a little red wagon in your head. You tell the red wagon to go away. Because you're doing this. You're supposed to, and you start oming or you start, saying an affirmation to clear your head. Well, if you were in a program with us or just listening to the app, we would say, oh, there's a little red wagon. You should check that out. Why is that little red wagon there? And so in those deep meditative states, you're going along with the experience. You're not shooing it away. You're not telling it to go away.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, that sounds exactly right up my alley. Did I mention?
It does.
So expand app back to that. Is it just a listening app? And I do want to dive into a little bit into the Monroe technology of sound. Yes. I think on your site I found the HemiSync technology, that kind of thing. So can you share with us a little bit of how that HemiSync works, and then bring the Monroe technology into it?
Okay. Well, so I already talked about the frequencies going in one ear and the other ear, and then we had Bob Monroe came up with what he called maps of consciousness, and he called them focus levels. And so it gave us a way to map out the territories using these combinations of frequencies. And again, like I was saying, it's not just a theta, it's not just an alpha. Instead, it's a state. The first one that we teach on campus is mind awake, body asleep. Mm-hmm. That's called Focus 10. That is a state where, what do you think you do? If it's mind awake, body asleep.
Dream?
Astral project.
That's an excellent, that's one of those foundational pieces. It's one of those foundational pieces for you to remain alert.
Right.
When you are in those deep meditative states. So that's really what that's about. And you can actually, and sorry, this is a spoiler alert, but you can actually hear someone snoring or heavy breathing. And you're like, okay, I'm in here by myself. Who is that? And you're thinking, and it's you.
Oh no.
Your body is that asleep. Like, it is snoring and you are still alert.
I told you it wasn't me snoring.
No, I'm awake. Looking for the earplugs.
Mindfully awake, however.
And so then there's another, the next one we would teach you is called Focus 12. Now, the numbers aren't magical. One's not higher than the other. you get the idea, you sometimes get the idea that it is because it's a higher number, but it's more about the purpose. So what am I trying to accomplish in this meditation today? Focus 12 is more about the total self. So you're dialing down the body and you're getting more into higher self communication. Like that's where I would be maybe having a conversation with my body, which is interesting. Have y'all ever done that?
My body is deaf and dumb, so no.
I've yelled at my body.
Well, no, I've done that too, and unfortunately, that's we got to stop that.
Yes.
And I still find myself being mean to her. But
does
one
she
of the
yell
things
back?
no, she should, and that might make me think twice. But one of the things I was doing early on, I used to listen to Hay House Radio when it was Summer McFadden just had started. It was really radio. It was for podcasts. And I was watching or listening to a show, and it was her mother. What's her name? Venus Andrak. And so her mother goes, "Hey, you guys, you can talk to your body and it'll talk back." And I'm like, "What?" This was probably 10 years ago. No, but I thought, well, okay, when I meditate next time, I'll try it. So I got all into my meditative state. And so then I said, "Okay, body, what would you like from me today?" And I hear Butterfinger.
Oh, I was just going to say Hershey bar.
and I was like, it totally popped me out of the meditation. I'm like, no, I'm on a diet. And if I get a Butterfinger, I'm going to, so I'm thinking it's going to tell me lettuce, spinach, salad.
Right. Your body's addicted to sugar.
And I like Snickers more than I like Butterfingers. But anyway, so that led me to start thinking about this. I can talk to my body, and I've gotten like vitamins I need to take. I can get information, and it's interesting because sometimes I'll have to sound it out. Like I've never heard of that before, and spell it. And this was before turmeric became a big deal. And I was like, "What is turmeric?" And I look it up, and it was for inflammation, which I was having some inflammation. So you can have these two-way conversations with not just higher self, but with the body, with guides. Right. There's a whole new world out there.
Yeah, we're finding that every interview we do opens up a whole nother doorway, which we didn't even realize was there to open. However, something comes to mind. Okay. You've already talked about the importance of imagination. Mm-hmm. And you're sitting here saying you're meditating, you're talking to your body, and it says to you, it wants a Butterfinger. Mm-hmm. You've heard it, right? Because you say you're clear, you're audio. Right? So, how can you differentiate that kind of thing from your imagination? Like if I'm sitting there and I'm hearing things, I'm making it up. I'm making it up myself. How can you tell the difference between the two?
So that's a muscle you have to develop. And that's with practice. So, when we were at the very beginning, when you were saying, okay, there's some foundational work I need to do, those are the kind of things that's a piece of it that you have to start trusting. For example, when I was practicing Reiki about 4 years ago, I started hearing information about the person I was working on. And I would a lot of times I would say in my head, I would hear it. And I would go, I'm not telling her that. They'll think I'm crazy. But as I said it, I would make myself say it, even if I thought this is the craziest thing I'm going to say. And what will it mean to this person? I wasn't interpreting. I was just saying what I heard, and they would validate it every time. Mm-hmm. And so, but you don't have to start with that type of validation because you're not there yet. So how do you validate?
Karen, I'm hearing I need a coffee right now.
How do you validate when you're just starting?
Yeah.
Well, that's where I would start with the dream analysis and then meditating and asking. We do something here called 5 questions, and we have a problem solving exercise. So doing some little things like that while you're meditating, and then journal it. So that you can start verifying and ask for something to help you verify when you're in those deep meditative states.
I got it.
Yeah, me too. Cool. And it's interesting that so many people come back and tell you to journal and journal. And I'm not, I like to write, but for some reason, I'm not a journaler.
Yeah.
How does that help so much?
Well, it helps because you can go back and see the breadcrumbs. That's why, I mean, I am a journaler. I'm a writer and a journaler. So right now I'm writing a book, and I'm going back to 2008, 2009. I even went back to 1994, and I'm reading about my thoughts about all this stuff and where I was in the process. And also I started having out of bodies in 2009. So I was able to, look at those and look at some of the meditations I would have that were about the future. And yeah, so I mean, that's why, because you'll forget when you have these meditations, it's like a dream. You say, okay, I'm going to remember that. Don't have time to record it this morning. I'll do it when I get home from work, and it's gone.
Yeah.
And that's the way these meditations are. They're very fleeting. And I have read things in the past, like when I do pick it up and look at it, it's like, oh, wow, I don't remember that at all. But again, it was telling me, it was pointing in a direction that I was going. It was a key piece. Yeah.
So I guess it could do bullet points.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because that's the way the show started. Is I would meditate, and as I would get messages, I would come out of it and record my thoughts, what I just saw, into my phone, and I would release those. And I would read up copy or passage in like Conversation with God or something like that, and tie the two things together, and that would be the first episode.
Right, right.
The problem,
and maybe that's it. Use a microphone instead of writing, and then have AI transcribe it.
That's a good idea. I just have horrible handwriting, And at the end,
I'm a typer. I'm actually typing mine all the time because that way I can search it and find things.
That's smart.
That's smart.
And it's fast because my brain's going really fast and my fingers can go really fast.
Well, it's funny because something happened. Karen mentions the stuff that happens to me. The universe slaps me in the face. Kind of this happened. The universe slapped me in the face this one time on an airplane, and I was so shell shocked that I had my laptop with me, and I sat there and I wrote the whole thing so I wouldn't forget it.
Right.
It worked because as things happen like that, you try to immediately explain it away. As a pragmatist, I'm explaining it away. But this way, there was no way for me to explain it. So I'm just writing it down so I don't forget it. And I have a theory that the universe conspires to show you, but yet our minds conspire to not see it. So we're finding ways to not to oh, no, it's nothing. Then just nothing to see here, right? So the act of writing it down that day actually helped me to remember to this day.
Oh.
Whereas I may not have to remember it.
I am so interested in these programs that you have, whether it's a week long or a weekend. What can someone expect if they signed up for a week? What does that look like?
We always say that each individual has a personal agenda. We have a program agenda. We have things we're going to do, but each person comes in different for different reasons. So a lot of times we find that personal agenda will take over. So for me to tell you, this is what happens, blah, 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 blah. It's not necessarily the same for each participant, even though you're all here together. But as far as the general overview, like let's just say Gateway, and we have other graduate programs that are similar to that format. You do 5 to 6 meditations a day in your check unit. And so it's basically a setting it up. Your trainers who are very skilled set this up. You have the experience, and then as a group you discuss it. Then you go again. And then you get 3 square meals, you get snacks.
Oh, God, I love it.
That sounds great.
Yeah. And yet once again, Allyn goes, I can't tell you, but let me show you. We've talked about a lot of the programs in Monroe about consciousness, about astral body, or astral projection, all that kind of stuff. There is so much more about the Monroe Institute that is yet to be discovered. So I would invite anyone who is interested in learning about the Monroe Institute to reach out to you. So what is the best way for someone to do that?
So info@monroeinstitute.org is the easiest and the best way. And of course you can find our staff or send to our different staff members.
And you have the website that we're going to put in our show notes. You also you have an Instagram account, you have a Twitter account, you have a Facebook account, you have a YouTube, which is really cool. you are nothing if not discoverable. So if you don't know enough about Monroe Institute by now, there is a plethora of resources out there for you to educate yourself. My gosh, Allyn, I can't even tell you, I can't express how much gratitude I have for you for coming on the show, talking to us for this hour that we've had the conversation for all the great things that you're going to do for us now moving forward, because we know each other, right? The whole friends thing.
There we go. Keep working it.
Oh my God.
I mean, wait, affirmations, manifestation.
Right, there you go.
Put it out there.
Hey, you can manifest this. Come on.
Oh yeah, no, believe you me. I just got to get over my fear of manifesting. That's what it is.
Wow, there we go.
But actually, the very first step in doing anything is actually putting it into action. Because we talked a lot about this stuff, and yet very few times do we actually take the step to put it into action. And you're not going to get this information. You're not going to get these experiences by osmosis, by listening.
Right.
You've got to take the step. I invite people to go get your Expand app. I'm going to do it right now as soon as we finish this conversation. And I hope that this is not the last conversation we have, because my God, do I absolutely love you and the Monroe Institute.
Thank you.
And a huge thank you to you. We know that there are tons of options out there, and having you decide to come along on our journey of discovery with us is an absolute honor for us. We'd love for you to contribute by sending us a voicemail or an email from our website, or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or any other podcasting platform that supports them. Karen and I love hearing from those that are moved to message us. It truly does fuel our passion. You are the reason we do this show. And knowing what you like and don't like, help us craft the very best show we can so that we can help raise the vibration of the planet together. Well, that's all for now, but we'll see you on the next episode of The Skeptic Metaphysician. Until then, take care.